Class Metals holds 100% ownership of 7 claim blocks covering over 180 square kilometres in Ontario. It's just listed on the main board of the London Stock Exchange, and I'm delighted to be joined by the Chief Executive, Marc Sale. So Marc, first off, you have 7 blocks. What do you hope that they will yield?
Hi, Sarah. Yes, 7 diverse blocks, and the focus is quite different on the different blocks. We have gold prospects, we have silver prospects, we have base metal and battery metal prospectivity, and also the latest buzz on one of them, we have rare earth metal anomalies. So we've got the whole box and dice, to be honest with you.
So that sounds an awful lot. It's a real feast. So I'm wondering, what is the plan? Explore on each site simultaneously or one location at a time?
Well, I can't say a bit of both, because obviously that would be a contradiction, but we have had field teams out on several of the blocks already because it's the field season over there. In fact, we started in early May exploring on some of the blocks. And also, I believe it's a bit of a feather in our cap as a newly listed junior explorer. A joint venture partner is drilling on one of our blocks at the moment. We signed an earning JV with Palladium One, who have had some astounding nickel results on their Tycho project. And they're currently earning into our West Pickle Lake project, and they have a drill rig on there at the moment, drilling happily away.
That's excellent, because I understand you're in good company. For other reasons, there's known entities, including Barrick Gold, in the region, but already, you know, in the mining world, there's very few competitors, but there are plenty of partnerships, and you've demonstrated that before the IPO.
Yes, and that's why, forgive me for feeling a little bit smug. And I have to give the credit to James and Caleb, the founders, in the fact that they identified some very, very good properties, 7 claim blocks, and also the fact that they arranged this joint venture with Palladium One. Actually, I'm going to have to retract that. They identified several good claim blocks, but as part of our company formation, we actually bought several claim blocks off Power Metals. Now, Power Metals is also a listed company, and they had intended to have a spin-off of their Ontario assets. But when they came across First Class Metals, Paul Johnson decided that a far better way to value add for Power was for them to spin their properties into First Class Metals and then take a stake in First Class Metals. So they are one of our major shareholders, to be honest. And they added several key properties to our portfolio.
Excellent, because Paul is a very well-known entity amongst not just the retail investment community, but the institutional investors as well. He's very astute, so that is another feather in your cap. But you mentioned James and Arab there. So who are they? You know, who's on the board? What experience do they have?
Well, James, he's the chairman of the board, and James has 20+ years, I won't give his age away, in the financial sector, in banking. Ayub has international exposure in the metals, oil and gas sector as an investment entrepreneur, shall we say. So he knows the space very well. We also have Marc Bamber on our board. He's also a well-known figure in the mining industry with international experience. And Danish Varner, again, 30+ years experience both in the UK exploration and mining industry and the Canadian exploration industry. So we've got me on the technical side, and then we've got a lot of help as far as the corporate financial side with the other chaps. But it's a strong board, one that's based on experience, as I say, in the mining, the financial and the Canadian sector. So I'm very happy to lead the technical side because I know I can relax slightly with the expertise I have on the financial side.
You're very generous in applauding the rest of the team, and you and Marc Bamber share an unusual spelling of Marc, M-A-R-C and not K. But tell us a little bit about you and your background.
I was one of the last 10-pound poms. I went out to Australia on a scholarship, studied at University of Western Australia in geology, and I worked in Australia for over 10 years in the exploration industry. And then I went further afield. I went to New Guinea, New Caledonia, Africa, and Argentina. And I sort of, I won't say graduated, but I gravitated from the pure exploration side into the project management side and then into technical director side. I was the technical director for Brancote, which had the Estelle gold project, which when we sold it to Meridian, it had just under 4 million ounces on the books. I then joined Patagonia Gold, and I say we because I believe it's all teamwork's area. And through Patagonia Gold, we then discovered Capoesti, which was over 1 million ounces, and also put Lamada de Leva into production as a heap leach operation. I then ran my own consultancy business and consulted to people in North, South America, Africa, New Zealand, Europe. So I've been around the block a bit, and I have, I guess, being honest and not sounding too sort of egotistical, I have been involved in a number of multi-million ounce gold discoveries in various countries. I was also the technical director for Landor Resources, which has currently 1 million+ ounce resource on its Junior Lake property that's listed on AIM. And coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, their project is called the BAM, B-A-M. Now, a lot of people won't know, but BAM is actually Bruce, I don't know what his middle name is, McLaughlin, who took the first samples there. And lo and behold, he now runs a company called Emerald Geological Services, who are doing all the field work for First Class Metals.
So there's a very nice symbiosis to that, and you sound very well seasoned, like a fine and expensive hardwood. Let's hope that the luck you've had with past prospectivity comes into this current position. But let's talk about the company. Now we've got your credentials. What's the company's USP?
That's a bit of a tricky one, really, Sarah, because we're a London listed exploration company with projects in Canada, and I think there's probably 2 or 3 others on the London Stock Exchange with those credentials. However, I think, or AIM should I say, however, I think where we're slightly unique is, and it was a torrid few days, we got our application into the stock exchange on the last day before they changed the rules and increased the market cap up to 30 million. So we've got a market cap of less than 10 million, but we're actually on the main board where you need a 30 million market cap to list now. So I think, yes, there are other explorers listed in London operating in Canada, but we're on the main board, and I think we have quite a little niche there, that we're a small cap on the main board surrounded by big players.
So you're sub 10 million at the moment, but how do you intend to create shareholder value?
Well, I think there's going to be, I won't say an avalanche, but there will certainly be a conveyor belt of news coming through. As I mentioned earlier, Palladium One are drilling on one of our properties. we will hopefully get some feedback from that in the not too distant future. We had field teams out on several of our properties sampling, so we have that news flow from those assays coming back in the not too distant. We also flew a very large heli-borne, low-level, high-resolution geophysics survey, I have to get all that out in the right order, over our flagship North Hemlow property, and that data is currently being processed, and then we'll get that interpreted. The North Hemlow property, don't forget, that contains the earning JV with Palladium One. So we flew this high-resolution survey in order to see what extensions there might be to that area, as well as obviously trying to identify other, I call it like nearology vectors. For example, on the west of our property, there's Panther, and they have their Dotted Lake project, but a lot of our properties have this nearology in so much that our neighbours have identified, or we believe they have the potential to identify, significant mineral occurrences. And this potential vectors onto our property. Either we've looked at the geophysical evidence, the geological evidence, the geochemical evidence where available, and we see these this potential of our neighbours vectoring onto our property. So we're buoyant about our prospectivity because of the nearology, because of the vectors, and also obviously in the case of Tycho, the fact that we are drilling. So there's going to be a news flow from the work we're doing and the interpretation that we're doing, and we will be going back out on the basis of these results in the not too distant future and generating more information, more news flow for the investors. So it's exciting times for us.
It's exciting, but that's one hell of a conveyor belt that you've just described there. So I'm wondering if you're able to tell us what the first likely piece of post-IPO news will be.
I think it's going to be a bit of I won't say race, but it'll either be the results of the field work that we've been conducting or the drilling on West Pickle Lake by Tycho, Palladium One.
So you mentioned Paul Johnson there. He's anointed the company in terms of being a shareholder. So you've just come to market. Was that a nice blend of retail, institutional, cornerstone investors that have made you really quite positive about who's on the shareholder register?
It's predominantly retail, though there are a couple of large investors, one of whom, and he's listed in the prospectus, and I've known James for a long time, and he's invested in a number of projects that I've been involved with over the years. He's been very successful, not only in the metals exploration, but also the oil and gas exploration field. So whereas we don't necessarily yet, I say yet, have the institutional support, we do have the support of individual large investors, and as you say, Mr. Johnson's tacit approval by endowing us with some of his claim areas.
And you also have 7 exciting claim blocks. Marc, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Marc Sale, Chief Executive of First Class Metals. Thank you and congratulations on your IPO.
Thank you, Sarah. Enjoyed it.